Hey guys, welcome back. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for today. So, welcome back to the Journey of a Christian Dad podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fatherhood, and how we can step up to lead our homes the way God calls us to. Today, I am beyond excited. I say it every week, but like more so than ever, like super excited to have John with us, whose story has inspired millions around the world. Quick recap: when John was 9 years old, of course, his story starts sooner than that, but this is a key part. He suffered burns over 100% of his body in a house fire. Doctors gave him less than a 1% chance to survive. And yet, by God's grace, the love of his parents, and encouragement of all kinds of people around him, John not only survived, but he's gone on to live a life on fire with purpose.
Mm.
He's a best selling author, a sought after speaker, and now he's the subject of an upcoming major motion picture called Soul on Fire, and it releases October 10th. That's an important date, so write that one down somewhere. October 10th, stick it on your calendar. So, John's story isn't just about tragedy, it's about faith, family, and choosing to live fully alive. And today, we're going to talk about how dads like us can apply those lessons in our homes and in our walk with Christ. John, welcome to the show.
What an awesome introduction, man. If you haven't been moved already by what was said already, then you're immovable. So, man, Dan, I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And just to make sure folks hear about it on the front side, because they'll hear about it all the way through, this isn't my work. Like the word John was used a lot and he, but man, I am broken. I'm inarticulate, as you are about to hear. I struggled academically. I struggled with self-worth. I struggled financially. I struggled with addiction. So like the least among us is now having this film celebrated, not about his life, but about how God orchestrated people to show up in his life in mighty ways and what that means for us as we show up for others. So this it's a cool story. It's the right time for a story like this. And I'm excited to talk about it on your podcast.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. It was amazing. Many of my friends read the book On Fire, written by you. So I s- skipped your name. So On Fire, everybody. John O'Leary, uh, and his parents actually have a book out there also that's a really good book as well. But yeah, this movie came about. A lady named Linda approached you and says, "Hey, let's make a movie about your life." And I think maybe others had approached you about doing different things over the years, and nothing ever really took root. So I don't know that you took that as a hey, something's going to happen type conversation.
Yeah, so I mean the backstory quickly, and give me the 12-second elevator. Here it comes. We're gonna go quickly. Is at the age 9, I was burned in a house fire on 100% of my body. Should have died. Lost my fingers, lost my normalcy from my neck to my toes, man, just burned terribly. Did survive. The miracle took, but I struggled with self-worth after coming out of the hospital and then for decades afterwards. And then, Dan, for me, one of the turning points was being in the back row of a church service, arms crossed. Uh, I'm a back row dad, man, back then. So I'm in the back row. I'm hungover from the night before, and I'm beat down by life. This is not me bragging. I'm just being honest. Like this is my life. And the pastor was talking about the gift of talents, and ultimately said, and for those of you who feel like you've got none, listen to me. Your life is a precious gift. You got one job. Say yes to being used for good, which led to me going home that day, writing it down in my journal, going to work the following day, getting a phone call while down there. I'm working construction. It shows up in the film. I get a random call, and the person says, will you speak at my school?
Mm,
And man, in any world before that, I would have said no, because I would have messed it up. I don't like talking about myself. I hate my hands and my scars. I hate my past, which means I hate who I am today. So I would have said no. But the day before, in the
mm.
back row, I hear a message that my life was a precious gift and that I had one job, say yes. So I said yes that one time. And long story made far shorter, 2,700 speeches later, the work continues of loving people where they are and reminding them of the value of their lives. In one of those conversations, I was in Vegas at the MGM Grand. So there's 27,000 people there, I think. And one of them is a woman, like you referenced, named Linda. So in this random massive crowd, in this random speech in Vegas, she comes up with On Fire in her hands and she says, "Have you ever thought of making this into a movie?" And I said, "No." Right? No, man, I'm normal. Okay, no. And she says, "Could I try?" And that's when we go back to the answer of serving. The answer is always yes. So I said, "Ma'am, you can try." And she, and then a team around her, you're now part of that team, worked for almost a decade to bring this little baby seedling, just an idea, into fruition. So when we brag on O'Leary's story, the cool thing is we're not. It's just a story of how God used so many ordinary folks to drive forward the story in mighty ways, way bigger ways, Dan, than I would have fathomed.
Yes, yes, 100%. It's mind, but we grew up in the same area in the same time, so it's mind blowing to me to
Me too,
think,
man. I mean, dude, you walk by movie posters and it's like, oh, there's my wife. And there's like, it's the strangest thing in the world. But at the end of the day, I leave the theater and I go home to my wife and my kids and my dog and a messy kitchen and, my mom's challenges and the recent loss of my dad and like life, in other words, and trying to figure it out. But Hollywood has done such a terrific job of putting in front of us heroes who wear capes and tidy readies and that there's squirrels who talk and curse and shoot laser guns, and we keep waiting for them to save us because that's our rendition of heroes. And then Soul on Fire has put forward a very different rendition of nurses and janitors and siblings and dads and moms, school classmates, girlfriends, buddies. In other like here's what you're hearing. Ordinary folks who did the right thing at the right time and were part of a miracle. In other words, they are heroes. And if that's true, it means you and I are invited to do likewise. We don't need to wait for the squirrel to show up with a laser gun, curse us out, and then save the world. You can do it now. We can be part of this journey forward. It starts at home, but we can be part of this journey forward.
yeah, I love the fact that literally all kinds of different occupations, people like you referenced, firefighters, the janitor, everybody is kind of celebrated and pointed out the part that they played
Right.
because just one person wasn't enough to keep you alive and to keep you moving, and then different people that you needed and different things were spoken to your life, like just the belief that you were going to live or the belief that you're going to be able to walk again someday, was just unbelievable.
I like how you said that, man. Spoken into your life. And I've never said it just like that. I know that's a common expression, but when you go back through, you know my mom and dad, you know our
Yes,
story, you know the book, and
yes.
you now know the movie. Whether it's what my dad said in the emergency room, or what my mom said a minute later, or what Nurse Roy said, or what Jack Buck said, or what my sweet wife eventually said, like it is speaking encouragement, faith, and love into someone's life, and eventually, oh, they begin to expand what they know is possible.
Maybe let's start on an easier, kind of lighthearted question. What's something fun? Is, the movie's being made all around you and your life is somewhat consumed by getting this movie made. What was something fun that just was unexpected and maybe a story that you want to share?
So oddly, I had no desire at all, first of all, for a movie to be made. So that's kind of fun. And then when they all came to St. Louis, there are hundreds. It's not just 51 actors. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that support this process. So what I expected to do on day one was to zip in, make sure the thing was moving forward, and then go back to work. And it ends up once you're in, it's like quicksand. It's like the mob, man. They keep drawing me back in, man. I can't get out. So I ended up on set on day one and did not leave for the month that they were in town filming. And that was fun. I had no idea how much fun that would be. A second thing that was a ton of fun is I had no idea that these actors from New York and Hollywood would be humble and cool, that they would be good to my parents, that they would be kind to the least among us, that they would treat us with respect, and that it was not an acting job. It's just who they were and are. like William H. Macy and John Corbett. Like these guys were fun. So that was fun. I had no idea that all the guys who were black behind the cameras, these are the ones doing the work. They're driving the vans, they're setting up the booms, they're the ones that make movies. I had no idea how much I would fall in love with these guys. They were fun. They were and are cool, and they're my buddies. And when you asked the question, the first thing that came to mind was I had no idea how much fun my kids would have. We had the actors to our house, 10 times for dinner or drinks or just hanging out. My kids aren't always engaged with the adult conversations. They were when the actors were there. When we were on set, they were engaged. My son Jack, I hope his principal's not listening right now, would skip school and go downtown and film with us. He would bring friends. One time we were filming at mom and dad's house. You've been there, Dan. And he said, Dad, can I bring a friend? So I'm like, yeah, I guess you can bring a friend to the set. 3 carloads of kids from DeSmet show up. All these boys, man, get out. And at first I was like, what the heck are they doing? But to see the joy in their hearts, man, like to expose and experience this as a kid, that was fun. So the most fun I had was to see the joy lived out in the lives of those around me.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I echo the same thing that the things that I got to see, and you mentioned the kids, especially the kids. I mean, it was great seeing the adults and everything, and we all were tickled pink, and it was amazing. But to see that childlike wonder and then also looking back to see a 9-year-old or a 16-year-old and think, gosh, what would have been like if I would have been that little kid and then had that? Although you kind of did have that in your growing up, but nevertheless, getting to be at Busch Stadium and things like that and being featured. But that's a whole different story.
Well, since you brought it up, let's go. Being on the field at Busch Stadium on December 8th, and for your listeners and viewers who live in the Midwest or St. Louis, uh, it could have been sleeting. It probably should have been. And it was 62 degrees and bright blue skies. And we were filming what's called John O'Leary Day at the Ballpark. And so we have 2 scenes from Busch Stadium. The first one takes place when John's 9. The second one takes place, I won't talk about it, but when John's 37. And both of them are awesome. But we filmed it at Busch Stadium, and to have all the talent around, and the guys in black who are supporting the crew, and my kids and my wife and some of the investors, to see everybody there engage on this gorgeous day and the goofy grins on everybody's faces. So Sean McNamara, he's a director who shot in Vegas and Fiji and DC. He's been all over the world shooting films, but he had this grin on his face the entire day. I have a picture of him and William H. Macy, and they're just looking at the arch and the stadium like, can you believe we get paid to do this? And then I have another picture of him with John Corbett, who plays my dad in the film.
Hmm.
It's just so the joy, not only of the moment they were capturing for viewers later on to watch, but the sincere joy they had to just be part of it at all. You mentioned the words childlike wonderment. Like these old adults were just fired up for life. And that was cool to observe.
My daughter, we were driving to SLU College, and we're loading up the car, and she says, Dad, I got to go back in. And she grabs this little notepad. And then as we're driving down, she says, Hey, can John sign an autograph? And her question wasn't what I interpreted as was, Hey, do you think John would sign an autograph for me? Her question was,
Physically.
physically,
Oh,
can John sign an autograph for me? And I didn't process it at all. I'm like, oh, I'm sure he would. Like if we, happen to bump into him, if we happen to get an opportunity. And she goes, no, no, can he?
that's
And it
awesome.
totally caught me off guard. And I paused and I thought, well, sure. Yeah. Like I goes, you've read the book. And she goes, I did. I go, do you remember the part about going back to school and having to be able to write to get back to school and writing the thank you notes? And she goes, oh, yeah. So he really did that. So she got really excited, and the opportunity came about, and she says, "Hi, John. Can I get an autograph?" And you very kindly, very lovingly, so I would love to do that. I would love to You got down on your knee.
I remember it well, man. I know right where we were.
Yeah, and you put the notepad on your knee and you filled out maybe two or three different pages and wrote her a little note and everything and signed it. And she treasures that.
Mm.
Like it was great. And the funny thing is the actor that plays you in the movie, Joel Courtney, who was featured in Jesus Revolution, the young pastor, we ran into Joel later that day. And he had some handlers with him and he was on his way somewhere. And hey, Joel. And he says, hey, and he's clearly on his way somewhere. And she says, hey, Joel, would you mind signing my notepad for me? And he goes, hold on, and tells us, and he's like, we gotta go, we gotta go. He goes, hold on, please. Gets down on his knee and autographs a little something for her, has an exchange with her. And I'm like, that is hilarious how Joel Courtney had no idea what the real life John O'Leary did or how he acted, and it was like the same scene.
It's annoying, man. The dude became me. He spoke like me, he walked like me, and he learned in time, I guess, for better and for worse, to sort of act like me. And my team used to say, John, we were always worried, like if you got laryngitis or something should happen to you, like our business is gone because like we do speaking around here. And now they're like, yeah, if that happens, we'll just call Joel. We won't even miss a beat, man. We might do better as a speaking firm if Joel takes over. So when you share that though, there's two things. One is that your daughter's joy. That's one thing I remember seeing on her sweet little face. Like she was so fired up. And the second thing, so clearly in your story, these actors are going places. Like there's no steps that are wasted. They're very, very busy. And here you ask this guy with handlers who know their one job is to say no. Like that's their one job. Get him from A to B, no stopping. And and then you reach out to Joel and he's like, of course. And they say, don't do it. And he goes, of course we do this. Because that's who Joel is. That's his heart. That's his character. And had you asked any of the other folks, they would have done the same. We were, I guess, supremely blessed to attract in great actors who are better people.
Yes, yeah, it was amazing meeting. And you mentioned it earlier, like how down to earth and everything they were. We got to hang out with William H. Macy. Thank you for the invite to that event. And like, it was amazing. Like, this guy's in the tabloids all the time and all this. And we're just having regular conversation with him. And he was not looking for the next thing to do or how do I get out of here. And you might not know this actually. So you gave an impromptu speech that night, which was amazing. And William was standing next to me, or Bill, as his friends call him, was standing next to me, and you finish, and he turns to me, he goes, "Was that real?" I said, "Yeah, that was real." He says, "No, I mean, did he know he was going to speak tonight?" I go, "No, like that is just he's pretty good at this stuff." And he says, "That was the best like impromptu off the cuff speech I've ever seen in my life." And he goes, "Hold on. That was like the best speech I've ever seen in my life, bar none, period."
Wow.
He goes, "That was incredible." And the thing was, I don't think at that point in time had ever met you before. It was his first day. He hadn't been on set yet.
Right.
So he didn't know any of the other actors or any of the other things, but he knew the story. But he's like, and I said, "Hey, thank you for just being a part of this and lending your
Totally.
name to the story because of you, a lot of people are going to see this movie that wouldn't have otherwise seen it or even known that it was out there in existence." I go, "But this is it. This is why the movie's so important to all of us is so that the world can see things like this and we can all change our lives for the better." And he goes, "Wow, this is going to be special. I'm really glad that I signed up for this."
You know what's cool? So I did not know that story, and I'm gonna ignore the flattery you threw my way or Bill threw my way. But what I will say is actors frequently take jobs because they're jobs. And what he found and they found is a story more important than they read on script. So it became far more than they assumed. And now these guys, like Bill Macy's currently filming up in New York, like he's busy. And yet he forced the entire crew to slow down in early October for the world premiere. And as you now know, Dan, when they film, there's 1,000 people working. So for one actor to tap the brakes, like that is disruptive. But for him, what is considered in Hollywood terms like a mid-budget film, Soul on Fire, it is important enough for him that he is leaving a major motion film filming currently to fly to St. Louis away from work,
Mm,
away from what he should be doing to celebrate and to promote this project that he fell in love with. And he fell in love with the city, he fell in love with the story, and he fell in love with the heart of what it's really all about, which is your life, in spite of what you've been through or done or the mistakes you've made, can be used for good. But you've got to go. You've got to stop making excuses. You've got to start living.
yes, yes, 100%. I've been wanting to ask you about your dad. So, um, he passed away maybe 3 months ago now, maybe a little bit longer, somewhere in that time
Yeah.
frame. Um, I saw your eulogy from the church.
Well,
Um, where I guess let's back up and like, what were some things you remember from your childhood that your dad has that you are who you are today
mm.
because of your dad?
I mean, and when you said that, the first thing that came to mind, and this is not in the eulogy and it's not in any book, it's just who my dad is. We drove to Naples, Florida. His mom and dad moved to a little 800 square foot house on the smallest, worst golf course you've ever heard of in Naples. And we would go there every summer for 2 weeks and cram in 6 kids, station wagon, two parents, bags in the far back. Two kids would lay on top of the bags on a 20-hour drive. This is before there were vents in all 17 rows of cars. Like it was so hot, so horrible. But we drove the 20 hours. Okay, that's what we did every summer. Well, one time we drove, I was 7. We then our car broke down in Macon, Georgia. So we're dealing with that. We get a rental car. We put all the bags in that. We continue the journey from there. We make it into the Naples area. We stay in this little high rise off the beach a little bit. And my dad, we go up to the room, and then he says, John and I are going to carry in the bags. That's our job.
Ooh,
So the reality is he's going to carry in the bags, but I'm going to be his little helper. So I go with my dad. He's just driven 20 hours plus the delay of the car breaking down in Macon. We come away from the station wagon. He's got his hands filled. He hands me the keys to the car and says, just hold on to these. Okay. That's my one job. I don't even have a bag. But I saw in a movie where like kids were like kind of like circling them around their index finger. I just thought that looked cool. So I'm circling this thing around my index finger as we gonna get onto an elevator. You know where it goes, man. The door starts to shut, and right as it's about to shut, the thing flips off of my little finger, goes down the crack, and boom, it's gone. And I look at my dad, who has driven for 20 hours, who has just lost his credit limit because he rented a car that we don't have money for. He gave me one job and I messed it up. I start to cry. He looks down at me with bags in his hands, sweat on his forehead, and says, Baby, it's all right. We'll get this. And then he goes, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it sounds like I bet John made that up. I didn't make it up. It was the drumbeat of how my father raised his kids. And you saw it a couple times in the film. Dan, you knew my dad. I'm
yes.
positive if you met him early enough in his life, you would have heard that line yourself when you screwed something up with insurance. He was a man who moved toward excellence, but lived in grace. He did that as a dad. He did that as a husband. He did that as a law partner. He did that when he was on top of the world and when he was beat down under the weight of it. So the first memory I have of my dad is me holding his one seat set of rental car keys, messing it up with everything I've got, and him saying, That's all right. We got this. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it, John. So, dads, because I know you got a lot of dads out there, your kids are watching, they are being influenced, they are paying attention, and they are remembering. And everything we do and say is influencing how they are going to remember us, not just when we're 7 or 8 or 15, but once decades later we eulogize our dads. They will eulogize you one day. And they can make up stories about what a great chef you were for Thanksgiving and get people to laugh and talk about the jersey you wore for the football game. Like, that's fine. But when my brothers and sisters and I eulogized our dad for the week leading up to the funeral, none of us could come up with negative things to say. This man dealt with so much and did so with such grace. So it is a role model that is, it's like Jesus. It's an impossible thing to live toward, but why not strive for it? The goal, I don't think, Dan, is perfection this side of eternity, but it's the movement toward it. And from any man I've ever met, no one moved closer to it that I know personally than my dad.
I heard so many different people talk about your dad at his funeral. And of course, you say good things about people and on and on and on. But I ran into random people that were attorneys
Mm.
that either knew your dad really well or knew of your dad or were, just around. But all of them said, man, this guy was really, really good at what he did, cared about others, and openly shared how to become a better attorney, openly shared about how to become a better man. And I guess outside of the attorney world, your dad wrote not even a book that anybody knows about, but the ABCs of being a Christian dad.
Do you have that?
I do have that.
I mean, man, sometime when you have more time on your podcast, turn to P and read Parkinson's and have your heart opened. Because here's a man who he had about 10 years. He didn't know how much time he had, but about 10, maybe even 15 before he died. And he's just talking so vulnerably to his kids. That's who he wrote this for. It's not for Dan, it's not for podcast listeners. He wrote it for his six kids so that we would understand in our lives what mattered to him and his. And for him, it's all about Christianity, it's all about Jesus, all of it. My dad was 43 and 1 in trial work. That's a pretty good run. My dad was highly successful, but never identified with that at all. He was just this phenomenal, humble servant who rocked. So after he loses his job, after he begins losing his income, after he gets close to losing his house, Dan, he writes a book called ABCs of Christianity and gives it to his kids. And there's a chapter P for Parkinson's. And he writes about not understanding exactly why God has gifted him this. Even that word is unusual. Gifted him this. And he
Mm,
talks about so many of the fears that he has around this. But he also talks about seeing so clearly God's hand unmistakably in the midst of this. Ooh, man. And I read this after he died. And I wish I could have just read it to him when he was struggling for decades because he was such a teacher. And sometimes the teachers in front of you, you don't see how great they are when they're next to you. And I see so clearly now the man my dad was.
mm. Yeah, I was surprised that it sounded like other people knew about this and kept requesting that he get a copy to them.
Right. He should have charged, man. We could have used a little bit of money in the Leary house. Yeah, but I think he printed more than 1,000 ABCs of Christianity. They're not bound. They're stapled, I think. Maybe they have that little cheap spiral next to them, whatever it is. There's nothing fancy about it until you open it. And that's when your heart stirs. So, for you, Dan, when you read through this, maybe with your daughter, whoever, or when you read, maybe one of your podcasts you'll read, hey, I just want to kick off this one with Denny's P and it's
Mm,
Parkinson's and
mm.
people's
That would be
hearts.
a good episode.
The guys, hey, dads out there, I'm a dad of four. Dad wrote this to his six. A daughter who's in the midst of a divorce at that time, another child who's dealing with mental health issues, one of us going through a financial storm, one of us, me, struggling with all kinds of addictions and self-worth issues. He wrote this to us to remind us that God works through all things and all people for his perfect purposes. That peace section I think ends with the words from Job, the Lord gives, the Lord takes, blessed be the name of the Lord.
Mm,
That's a pretty cool way to go through life, man, when you're collecting trophies and when you're burning them later on for heat. That the Lord gives, thank God, and the Lord takes, thank God. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so you're mentioning the funeral. My dad essentially was unable to move for the last decade of his life, for the most part, unable to speak. And almost 1,000 people attended the funeral for a guy who changed their life through his presence. And so, Dan, I know you helped change his. I'm sure, shaped yours, but it was just in the manner in which this guy loved that set him apart. And that, by the way, friends, that's not about degrees, income level, how sexy you still are. Dude, none of that matters. to your kids, to God, or to others. So focus on the things that are eternal and watch what you can do in your life.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard to explain the impact your dad had. As you mentioned, he couldn't move. And also, it really impacted so many people in that state. And I can't put words to it, John.
Dude, try being a son, man, and then try having your darn mom 2 days before the funeral saying, "I'd like you to eulogize dad." Because I have an older, better spoken brother than me who's in law. Jim could have done it brilliantly. All of my sisters are so capable. And I felt humbled and blessed and overwhelmed and unworthy. And then got over all that and said, man, here's a chance for me to celebrate them. I mean, if you were there, Dan, and if you listened, if I didn't rock you to sleep, what you hopefully heard was not just a celebration of a dad, but a celebration of marriage
Yes. Yes. 100%. He
and
loved your
love.
mom.
And I tried to make folks know, first of all, that my dad wasn't always that sweet man in a wheelchair, that at one point he was on top of the world, but humble. And that's something we need to take a page from. And then we talked about how he handled the struggle with grace. And that's something we could take a page from. But then we flipped about halfway through and talked about, but where did that all, how did he keep showing up? How do we all keep meeting Denny? Like, what's that about? And that's when the light went away from dad toward the girl in the front row next to the coffin. Oh, dude. And every time I looked at her, man, my heart opened because that's his
Mm.
girlfriend of 64 years. Like, that's the one. But she showed us in every season what love looked like. And she showed us that until the very end. So I wanted everybody in that church to walk out not just celebrating dad or mom, but love and God working through it all.
Yes. Yeah. It was beautiful. I have no idea how you made it through without, totally breaking down and not
Bloody
being able
Marys,
to
man. I had four
talk.
Bloody Marys before I walked in. I don't remember any of it.
Right. Right. Naturally. But yeah, your dad was amazing. When he got diagnosed with Parkinson's, mentally, how did that affect you?
Yeah. So when that first happened, he was 46, which means I was like 15,
Yeah.
and I did not care. And I don't say that smugly or arrogantly. I say it more um, selfishly. When you're 15, your life is about, I wonder if she'll call me back tonight. And
Right.
she wasn't at that point. So I was worrying about me and my life and my struggles. I'd never really met anyone with Parkinson's disease. It's become more common, as I'm sure you and your listeners know.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a whole lot of reasons for that you can unpack on a different podcast, but partially environmental. So there's that going on. But I'd never met anyone with Parkinson's disease. It wasn't changing him. He was still the sweet man that raised us. Nothing changed. And then there was a slow evolution of just him losing the things he could do. And it started so painfully with like he loved trial law, but stress elevates the progression of Parkinson's, so he had to give that up. And to see a man who he loved law. It didn't define him. He just was gifted at it. So he had to give that up. That was painful, which led to other pains like financially that changed our family. It led to him at one point not being able to drive. It should have happened a year before we finally took it away from him, but that was hard. And then he was falling all the time, breaking bones. You heard me you
Yes.
talk
Yeah.
about what he'd broken, everything, some of them twice. Because until you're in a wheelchair, you just keep thinking you can walk forward. And then he would trip on something and boom, down he goes. So watching that and dealing with that and broken femurs and broken hips and the agony of it all, like, so that was hard. Eventually, he was unable to get out of the wheelchair, unable to use the restroom on his own, unable easily to swallow food. And at each step, we're losing our dad. So, like, that's the hard part. But through it all, he was teaching us what mattered. And dads, just so you don't all like turn us off right now, this is your only real job. It's actually not to drive them to soccer practice. That's not at all what your job is. It is to teach them while going to soccer practice what matters right now in the season. It's not to earn money so you can go on that unbelievable vacation and stream it on Insta. It is to, while you are on that unbelievable vacation, whether it's in Bermuda or in your backyard, and whether you stream it or you just live it, to in that moment show them what matters. And my dad showed us throughout his entire life what matters. I began the eulogy by recapping my dad's death. And oh man, I did not know you were going to grill me today, but here it comes. As my dad is, he's dying. We know he's not going to be there much longer. So if anyone's ever gone through this process with a loved one, you know what that's like. You know you're not going to get them back, but you also don't know when you will lose them. So I've got to take my kids home. So I'm leaving my mom and dad's house, taking the little ones back to their home. And on the drive back in silence, my son Henry, who is my wild child, this man runs free. Okay, he's just awesome. So he's my third born. And Henry says, he breaks the silence with the words, "What a wonderful way to die." And Dan, at first, I was so resent. I'm like, what is he talking about, man? Does he know what Grandpa's been through? Does he even know who Grandpa was? Does he know how great Dad was? Does he know his humor? Does he know the way he threw a football? Like, he only knows Grandpa either dying or in a wheelchair. He doesn't even understand. And then I sat there in silence a little bit longer and I thought about where we're leaving, which is mom and dad's house. And I thought about specifically what we're leaving. We're leaving a bedroom where a wife is sleeping next to her husband, 64 years in, where six kids were gathered who love each other still because they saw it modeled by their parents. It's rare. Half of adult kids don't like each other. My family loves each other. I'm not bragging. It's just true. We don't take credit for it. It's my dad. It's my mom. They modeled this. They demanded this. So we care for each other. So my son saw this and he saw a couple dozen grandbabies in this room saying goodbye to their grandpa, saying the words, "I love you," saying the words, "Thank you." So on the way home, he wasn't mourning like I'm still mourning. He was saying, "Dang, Dad, Grandpa, what a way to die," which is true. But it is a reflection of the manner in which he lived. And I know your podcast is more directed at dads, but dads, why wait? I think most of us wait till retirement to start living, or wait till we get them out of the house to start pursuing Jesus, or wait till we're less busy to make a difference in the community. Another thing I mentioned in the eulogy was five different women approached me while my dad was dying, randoms, and said, "Your dad was my father figure."
Mm.
This wasn't after Parkinson's. In the busyness of my dad's chaotic, crazy life with six kids and three dogs and a trial law job and a million things going on, he took the time, he embraced the interruptions. This is what Jesus did. Embrace the interruptions to love the one in front of him. And just because a little girl or a little boy has a daddy in their house doesn't mean they have a father they can look up to. My dad gave them that role model. And dads, I'm talking to you right now. Maybe that's your call. I'm glad you're doing a pretty good job with your one or your three or your 12, whatever you got. But maybe it's to create space where you can love the ones who don't share your last name. My dad did that all the time.
That's a common question I get about you. And it's how does John O'Leary do that? He's got a big family, wife who loves him, great home, and he travels all over the place. Like we're traveling jobs and all the things. A good friend of mine, a high school friend of mine, fell off a roof. He was a Marine and a police officer and contractor. And his wife reached out to me and she says, "Hey, that story you shared about John the other day, I don't know if you know, but my husband Brian was in a terrible accident, and John's been coming by him and kind of visiting him all the time. So this isn't public knowledge. This isn't in the newspapers or anything. Stories aren't printed anywhere about this one." And I said, "Tell me what happened. Tell me what's going on." I had no idea that he,
Right.
had major injury. And she's like, "John O'Leary's like the greatest guy ever." And my husband just so appreciates, that he's visited and that somebody else can kind of relate to a situation and just makes him feel better.
Well, I'd like to answer your question in two ways. Number one is you can only give what you've received. And in my earthly life, I've received mercy upon mercy from others. You know my story, Dan. So whether it's
Yes.
Jack Buck, the radio announcer, or Gino Cavallini, or Ronald Reagan, or Pope John Paul II, or Billy Graham, or all these random men and women who showed up for a little boy who did not earn it, they modeled for me what happens when you're compassionate to one person in front of you. whether it's an email, a phone call, a visit. Like it can save a life. So I learned that from others. And then as far as how do I model this, uh, here's the key, I think. You can love someone so deeply that their life is different afterwards in 8 seconds. I think we don't swing by the neighbor's house because either one, we know she doesn't care to see us, or two, because we've got nothing to say to her, or three, we've got no value to provide to her. And in the audacity of ringing a doorbell, bringing over the biscuits and saying, Carol, I just was thinking about you. I wanted you to know out of all the neighbors in this entire crazy neighborhood, it's you that my kids and I talk about all the time. We love you. We hope you like the biscuits. And out. And 8 seconds later, you're on, and her life is different. You mentioned Brian. Man, it doesn't take long to swing by, knock on a door. His wife made chocolate chip cookies with salt on top, dude. Like, I got a lot more out of that visit than I gave. Way more. It doesn't take long. You and I are recording this podcast. I was north of Detroit by about an hour last night. And I met this guy with a TBI. And in about 25 seconds, he starts crying. He hugs me and says, I want to thank you for helping me heal. I don't know what that means. But it didn't take very long to just see him eye to eye, man to man, heart to heart, love him, hug him, and say, man, if you need something, you got my number and my email. Stay in touch. After that, a little girl came up to me. She was born with Down syndrome. Her name's Laura. Laura's probably in her mid-20s, and she stared at me very stoically. And then she goes, Mister, I've been through a lot in my life, and I've heard a lot of speakers, and you won't like what I'm about to say. I'm like, uh-oh, here it comes. Not everybody is going to praise you. And she goes, Mister, you are the best speaker I've ever heard, Mr. John. And she just came in and hugs on me. But I think why she connected with the message is because while I was speaking, I went out to the audience at one point and just started kind of playing with different folks. And she happened to be one of the folks that I fist bumped. And what happens when you have a human moment with one other person? There were 500 in this theater. There were about 8 fist pumps given. She was one of them. Took 2 seconds. And it made, in her eyes, John, the best speaker she's ever heard. I don't care about her, the trophy. But the idea here, Dan, and your question is, how do you just get present with the one in front of you? This is the model of Jesus. It's what any other man would have gone to the well, had her lift up some water, he would have drunk and then moved on and do some fishing. It takes a man who's present to put his arm around the woman, I was about to use a different word, in front of him and just love her and change her life. That's what you do when you're open to the interruptions in the moment. And that's what great dads do. In the race through the day, when a kid says, Daddy, you immediately shut your cell phone and you're like, yeah, baby. Uh, because you're putting someone bigger than yourself first. So I learned that from my dad. I learned it from Jesus, and I learned it from all the folks who served me when I was in the hospital.
It reminds me of a story. I was speaking in front of a room of real estate agents one day, and there was a guy off to my right hand side in the front row. I don't know why this guy was in the front row, but he had his arms crossed and he had the best frown on his face, scowl on his face he possibly could.
He's in all of my audiences.
Yeah.
And several of his twin brothers usually are next to him.
For about 45 minutes straight,
Right.
expressionless except for that one. And I thought to myself, man, this guy hates me.
Yeah.
And when I finished, he promptly stood up and came right at me with that same look. And I thought, wow, not only does he hate me, he's also going to physically kill me. And he got about 2 feet away from me and he goes, Mister, you changed my life.
Come on.
Kind of smiles, sort of, spins and walks away. I have no idea who the guy was. No idea. But I was speaking about my daughter was 3 at the time, and I said why you should hire a 3-year-old business consultant was the topic. And the main message was love on
A
others,
good
be
topic.
curious, have energy, and be a noticer, notice others. And so kind of what you just talked about was kind of the summation of the 45-minute talk. And then for that guy to have changed his life because of hearing that message, I was like, this is unbelievable.
So good, Dan.
So yeah, I had my little John O'Leary moment for a second there.
Dude, I mean, that's not, I don't have the brand on that. Love does. Like last night, I mean, one more really quick story from last night. There's a moment where I have people turn to a neighbor and share something. And I say, and if you see someone by themselves, be bold and make a new friend. So I always say that, and who knows if it works or not. But last night I watched as a dad and a son started sharing, and there was a woman by herself, which I promise you, I think means she's a widow, which
Mm.
some of you know what that means. I don't yet.
Mhm.
Maybe one day I will. I know what my mom's life is like now. It's different. So she's lost her wingman. So this woman's in a theater by herself. And I watch as this dad leaves the son. I can see the son kind of pull the dad back, like, don't do it, dad. He ignores the kid. Hey, dads, pay attention. He walks down in front, kneels down next to the woman, and starts visiting with her. I see them hug, the widow and the guy. I see the man go back 2 more rows to his son. And so then when we came back to John grabbing the microphone, and I'm like, okay, oh, that's enough, Sharon, let's go. I called out that moment. And I said, guys, I just want to call out what I saw. I saw a dad and a son speaking for a moment, and then the daddy leaves to go down and just start encouraging and loving on this woman who came by herself. But now she's not leaving by herself, is she? And that's the goal of tonight, build community, people. So that's what I share. Afterwards, I found out that one of the volunteers for last night was the grandmother of that child. She
Ah,
forced him to come. He didn't want to come. He did not want the dad to share with the lady. And then afterwards, he says, Daddy, I'm so glad you did that. So this woman's highlight was the fact that a boy about 9 who did not want to go to some old man's speech last night came against his wishes, walked in with his dad, and then as they walked out, recognized my dad's my hero. Why? Not because he started making more money, not because we got on the right select team, not because he said the right thing at the right time, but because he had the audacity to love the one in front of him. It somehow got noticed by O'Leary and shared with the entire auditorium. So dads, like there's this reminder that I saw last night the kids are watching. Let's give them something to want to be more like.
so we shared a moment at the movie theater. You and I got to watch the movie together, and it was, I don't know, minutes after the movie was over, and we got to talk for a second. And I said, "Hey, this movie kind of reminded me of the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan,"
You did say that.
and it kind of nothing to do with war, and certainly not one of the greatest scenes of all time. Any particular scene in this particular movie, lots of great scenes, but holding the candle to that scene of Saving Private Ryan. But what I said was, and guys, if you've seen the movie, you might already emotionally feel what I'm talking about. It was the emotion of that scene of, oh my gosh, this might be the greatest scene I've ever seen. And also emotionally, this scene has got to be over. I cannot
Yeah.
wait for it to be over. So I was about an hour into watching the movie, and I looked down at my watch because I know about how long a movie should go for. And I'm like, oh no, we're only an hour in. And I know there's so much more good to come in this movie. And emotionally, I'm done. And I get to share with you after the movie, and it seemed like you were right there in a similar spot that I was, because you relived all this and all the emotion that is packed into the real life story besides the movie story. Um, and I know the day that we were filming at your parents' house, and we filmed the fire scene that particular day, and you said it was the first time you'd seen it from somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, uh, uh, a news place, TV place, interviewed you, and I got to see the interview, and you're visibly red, visibly emotional, visibly look like you'd just been crying, and they're like happy go, John, the movie's being filmed, and everybody's smiling. I'm like, these people have no idea the like true emotion that was happening that day, and especially for you and your family members remembering everything that happened that particular day. And in the interview, he said, "Hey, by the way, if it looks like I've been crying, it's because I have. Like,
Yeah. I
this was
remember that
real life.
interview.
It's not just a
It
movie."
was Channel 4, man. So the deal with interviews, this matters, I think, is, and this is not a knock against any interviewer, just a reality. They have 3 to 15 questions they ask, and no matter what you say, they go on to the next question, which is a lousy way to do an interview and a worse way to do life. And so when you are with someone, be with that person. And reporters just can't because there's too many things going on in their minds. They got earpieces in, they got times, they're trying to hit deadlines. And so as I go through interviews, it's so refreshing when you have someone like you, Dan, when we're talking, you're not going through the playlist. Something stirred you and you're like, oh, gosh, and that reminds me of when this happened. That is not a typical interview, but it is a good conversation. So men, dads, moms, don't interview people when you're out with them. Be in relationship with them. Be more like Jesus with them. They'll know it when you're with them. Trust me. That house scene you're talking about when I was right in the face, you're right. Number one, it was late October, maybe November at that point, and it's like 84 degrees. So I'm probably hot because it's hot outside. That's part of it. We've had a house fire in the morning. We take lunch, we come back, and we do the scene where little John comes home from the hospital. And in movie time,
Yes.
like it took an hour, but in Hollywood life, they just film it once in the morning, once in the afternoon. What moved me so much was seeing the emotion of my siblings on set. My brother was there that day. We don't talk about the fire often. So to see the emotion, like the guttural, deep emotion in him, ugh, the emotion of my sweet dad and my mom. My sister flew in from Austin for that day to see her hug the girl named Stella playing her. So the emotion wasn't just bad. It was like just life. And on that note, I had an opportunity before you and I watched the film together of watching it with my family.
Yes.
There was I think there's an organization that wanted to buy 3,000 tickets, but they wanted to watch the film first. So we booked a theater. The executive team came in. I brought my mom and dad. We sat in front of everybody. My dad sat to my left and held my hand the entire time. Which, Dan, when you know in
Yeah.
finger quotes that
Yeah.
your dad's going to be there for years, you kind of take for granted that. So I was just taking for granted that my dad was holding my hand. I did not know that he was going to die 11 days later. At the end of the film, though, I lean over to my hero as the audience is applauding, and I said, "Dad, what do you think about your movie?" And
Yeah.
my amazing dad says, "What a gift! What a gift!" And I've shared this before, but I don't think he was reviewing the film. I think he was reviewing his life, and I think he was, in some regards, not only letting us know that what he'd been through, the good and the bad, was a blessing, but also that truth is alive and well in our lives. A lot of times people ask me what I hope they get from the movie. And that might be it, that they walk out yelling, singing, what a gift. Not about my life or dad's or Jack Buck's or that John ends up with a pretty girl and 4 kids at the end. I don't care about that stuff. But what if they leave knowing that their life is a gift and the best is yet to come? So when you leave Soul on Fire, that is one of my hoped for takeaways for you, that your life is a gift.
Yeah, 100%. Recently, my dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer, and we've been through the couple things, and he's still got some more testing to go, and we don't know treatments and all that type of thing. But as a 52-year-old guy at the time, 53 now, I said, oh my gosh, like all these things went through my head of, he's going to die tomorrow. And
Yeah.
obviously knowing he's not. And I'd just seen him and knew he was totally healthy and it was a routine physical. And then they found, anyway. But within a few hours, I started thinking to myself, all right, hey, I got to write dad's eulogy. And it wasn't that I had to do it right that second, but I started replaying all the things in my life. And I was thinking about your dad.
Mm.
And I was thinking about, man, how lucky we were to have such great fathers.
One of the great blessings in my life, and I'm going to share this with you on the chance you haven't done so yet, and then all the dads listening and sons and daughters listening, is I had a chance throughout my dad's last 15 years, 20 years or so, just to brag on him all the time. I wrote books about him. I wrote newsletters about him. I wrote social posts about him. I gave speeches about him, and I did a movie about him. Uh, Many times we wait to eulogize until they're cold and in the box. And that sounds harsh, but why would you wait a bloody minute to tell your father that you're wild about him and give him 50 reasons why? And as important as that is, dads, listen in, and sons and daughters, why wouldn't you do the same thing for your kids? Why wouldn't you just ride on this? Like, dude, have I told you since you turned 9 how freaking proud I am of this girl that I'm lifting up? Have I told you the ways you changed my life? Oh my, here it comes. Get ready. Buckle up. Why do we wait until tragedy to recognize the blessing in front of us? So, Dan, the cool thing is, as your dad recovers, God willing, from this diagnosis, you are now in this mind swell of saying, I want to just share with my dad the ways he's shaped me. How cool. And then in doing that, you'll also probably be shaping that with your family. And I hope your listeners might take a page from that and do likewise.
Yes, 100%. So I know we need to close this one out. And I always like to do a challenge to the audience. And I always like to have the guests come up with the challenge. However, maybe I can be a little prescriptive with this one. My hope and prayer is that everybody in the world sees this movie. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. I already told you about the emotion with it. There's so many lessons and things to learn from it, so many takeaways. People I've heard say it's changing their life. I got to hear Jack Buck's wife say, this movie about my husband. And at first I was a little bit offended, like, who does she think she is? And then seconds later, I realized, oh, that's Jack Buck's wife. And this movie kind of was about him. And she says, the way that this movie honored my husband, the way you all made this movie, made me realize even how lucky I am to have been married to this man. She goes, I know how lucky I was, but like he was even greater than I
Yes.
thought he was. So all these different things in there. And so we were talking right before we hit record about being bold and inviting others and inviting your kids' classmates and just all these people together. But I'll let you talk because it was wonderful what you had said.
Mm. Well, I'm glad Carol Buck thinks the movie's about her husband because it is. We have a nurse named Sue who thinks the movie's about her and her team, and it is. We have a guy named Roy who is sure the entire film is about him, and it is. I've got a doctor flying in town for the premiere named Bachi Avaj, and he's 91. He is confident the movie is about him. When he watches it, he'll recognize it is. I've got 6 siblings, 5 of them, who are all coming in town for this, who are sure that the movie's about them. It is. My dad said, what a gift, because he knew the movie was about him, and my mom knows it's about her. So when you look at the film poster, you'll see a guy on the front of it whose back is turned to the poster viewer. So Dan doesn't see John's face when he looks at the poster. Look closer. You see the silhouette of John O'Leary, and look even a little bit more closer. It's right behind me. It's made up of the mosaic of all the people who fought to make this story possible in the first place. And so your question began with Carol Bach. She's right. But all that means ultimately then is it's about you. It's not about your typical hero story. And then I climbed to the very tippity top of Everest. I put down my stake. The flag says O'Leary on it. I rock. And if you do likewise, you can be great. It's the exact opposite hero story. I'm broken. I blew up the house. I blew up my life. I hurt my family. I became addicted because I didn't believe in myself. I did all things wrong in all types of ways, but people kept showing up. Mercies kept showing up. And through time and through God's hand, we now are changing the world one life at a time. Join us. Like that's the call. So here's my ask of your, if I haven't rocked you to sleep yet, come on, join me. Let's fill up theaters. Hollywood is a democracy. We vote with our dollars. We vote with our attention. We vote by the films we check out. And by going again and again to the summer blockbusters, guess what they give us more of? The garbage that we say we're sick of the violence and the cursing and the promiscuity and everything else. We're sick of it. But then we go to it. I'm inviting you and I'm challenging you. Go to a film about family. Go to a film about grace. Go to a film about heroes. Go to a film about unmistakable, unconditional love. And you will walk out changed. You will walk out confident that your life is a gift. And if you want to expand from that, don't go by yourself. Bring your family. You want to be bold, then bring you got a third grader, bring her entire class. And then you want to be really crazy? Talk afterwards at a little bar or restaurant who the heroes were, because they'll come up with names you weren't expecting. You want to be really audacious, man? Bring your leadership team. And then afterwards, talk about how do we engage in our community in the way that that community engaged in John's life. So there's all these ways to make 1 + 1 = 3. This movie will move you deeply, But imagine what would happen, Dan, if you and I brought those we care about into the film with us. And then together our communities were redeemed. And then we were living differently together. So man, I just hope we fill up the theaters opening weekend and beyond. And I hope Hollywood begins to get a clue that what they've been giving us in the past is not what we want anymore. That society's fallen far enough into the shadows and we want to return back into the light. So I know that sounds like, well, kind of bold, O'Leary. Yeah, why not? Like the author of life, man, is behind us. So let's have big, bold dreams, not only about a film, but about our lives. And let's draw others into the community so they can have that conversation with us. So the film is called Soul on Fire. It's in theaters October 10th around the country and around the world. And I encourage you to join me in a theater.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll contact me if you guys want to rent a theater even before it opens. I've got access to making that be able to happen for you. There's a cost to it, but the cost is fairly minimal. People all over the United States are doing this and bringing their friends and bringing their families and, you know, creating community. When I got asked after I saw the film, they said, "Hey, what's your big takeaway?" And I go, "My big takeaway is I'm so grateful that I got to see this in a theater with people that I know and love, and also other people that I don't know at all,
Right.
because this is a movie that you want to see at the theater. You want to
Great.
do this in community because you can't get that experience at home by yourself on Netflix or what have you. Like, this is a great movie to watch in community with others and be able to, as you mentioned, get together afterwards and talk about what you saw, to hear the different takeaways from many people after the movie. They were all different. They were all different, and they had things that I hadn't even considered.
And Dan, for those who email you, I hadn't thought about this. This is not planned, but anyone who reaches out to you afterwards and they say, dude, we're doing this, or I'm taking the third graders or fifth graders or high school kids or college kids or leadership team, we've created a series called Ignite Character. And what it is it goes through the seven primary characters from the film, Soul on Fire. There's no charge to this. And I unpack who they are and what they did. None of them are named John, by the way. I went through everyone else, talked about who it was and what she did, what he did, and why it matters. So these are deeply emotional. They unpack what Jack Buck did, what characteristic he modeled, and what it means for us. Who Beth O'Leary is, what characteristics she modeled, who Nurse Roy is, who these heroes are. And it allows us to go a little bit deeper into the film, to take it from two-dimensional, like that one moment in the theater, to being three-dimensional and ultimately lived out. So anyone who emails, texts, reaches out, send a honing pigeon to Dan, he'll have a link. I'll send it to you, Dan. Forward it out freely, man. And let's not just be inspired by this in community, but let's live like this in community.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't even know that.
And I'm
So,
doing a lousy job marketing through our other channels, but while you were talking, I'm like, man, that would be cool. Like rather than just hearing about Roy, like learn a little bit more about his heart and then how it can influence your heart. That's our goal in this series. So no charge, not scamming, not selling, just promoting you.
oh, that's fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming on, John, and spending your time with us and just sharing your life and, you know, some super vulnerable things in your books, in the movie, and on your podcast. By the way, Live Inspired Podcast, awesome podcast. Everybody go check it out. Anything else you want to share with the audience before you go?
Yeah, I cried 11 times during this conversation and I don't care. I'm not going to apologize. My favorite verse in scripture, I think it's John 11:35, and I could be way wrong, but it is Jesus wept. And I don't think that's weakness, dads. I know there's women who listen to our show too and kids, but uh, man, show them what greatness looks like. And it's not at all what the world is putting forward. So yeah, I know I cried a lot. I know I lost my voice a couple times. I don't care. I don't care at all. I love my dad. I'm grateful for my siblings. I'm wild about my wife. I'm in awe of my mother. And occasionally I cry about it all, both from brokenness and joy. So for those of you who feel like that's a weakness, read scripture and then pick up your cross and do likewise.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, John. God bless you. God bless our listeners. And guys, share this movie with everybody you know. It is such a fun movie to watch, so emotional, and so many little lessons to take away. If you're looking for a way to connect with your kids about something, there's something in this movie you'll be able to connect with them with. with your neighbor that you're afraid to go see, as John mentioned, with whoever you want to connect with. This movie offers you tools and the ability to share stories and connect and then go deeper. So that's something the world is missing. And this movie gives you the vehicle and the opportunity to do that. So I encourage you to share this with everyone you know. God bless you guys, and catch you next week.
Thank you all.